should be.
Thank you, Sir Edward Lee. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I want to congratulate my honourable friend, the member for Bradford West, for securing this very important debate. We are debating the human rights crisis in Burma, where ordinary citizens are being denied the most basic freedoms and rights, and the international community is not doing anywhere near enough to change the situation. It has been 2 years since the Burmese military launched their coup and seized control of the country from a democratically elected government. And despite heroic resistance and international condemnation, the military has instituted a regime of repression and violence. And this has been on a massive scale. I want to start off by extending my solidarity with the international NGOs who have done a great deal to protect people inside Myanmar, to support the internally displaced people, particularly in Rakhine State, but also in other states across the country, and also for what they do in other countries, and particularly in Bangladesh, where there are now 1 million Rohingya refugees who've had to seek refuge over the years, and particularly after the attacks in 2017. The Burma Campaign, who I thank for their tireless work, estimates that more than 2 million people have fled their homes and become internally displaced within Myanmar. And I want to declare an interest in that Burma Campaign UK provides secretariat support in the all-party parliamentary group for democracy in Burma that I am chair. Sir Edward, there are 40 political parties that have been effectively banned, including, of course, the National League of Democracy, which was declared the winner in the last democratic elections. More than 21,000 people have been arrested and 17,000 remain in detention. More than 60,000 civilians and properties homes and properties have been destroyed. We have seen the Burmese military using almost daily airstrikes to target medical centres, schools, religious buildings and camps for people displaced from their homes. And as has already been mentioned, as recently as the 12th of April, the world's media reported helicopter attacks on a village ceremony, including women and children in Sangam region. The death toll is likely to have reached 100, including many children, in one of the very worst atrocities since the military coup. Thousands of resistance fighters and civilians have lost their lives. Despite the unprecedented level of repression and dangers, the people of Burma have resisted their oppressors. The people have boycotted military-owned companies, they have risked their lives to peacefully protest, and young people have taken up arms to form the People's Defence Forces to fight the military. In the months since the military coup on the 1st of February, the military has stepped up attacks in ethnic areas including Chin, Karenni and Karen State, including torching of villages, murder of children, and burning people alive. And of course, we must never forget the plight of the Rohingya people. In August 2022, we marked the 5th anniversary of the Burmese military's genocide against the Rohingya people. For the Rohingya, it's been more than 5 years of pain, trauma, grief, and displacement. 5 years in camps far from home, robbed of their livelihoods, their education, their peace of mind, their futures. And for the perpetrators, the Myanmar military, the soldiers, the auxiliaries, and the men who issued the orders, it has been 5 years of evading justice for their crimes. Crimes described by the UN fact-finding mission as genocide. I have seen the suffering firsthand in my visits to Rakhine State on two occasions before the military coup, in the camps of internally displaced Rohingya people, and multiple visits to the camps in Cox's Bazar, which is now home to 1 million refugees, the largest in the world. The pandemic ravaged the camps, putting ever more a strain on the stretched resources. The military coup has made it even more, as has been said, unlikely for the Rohingya to return to their rightful homes in Myanmar. Half of the people in the camps are children, denied a normal childhood and denied a normal education. Sir Edward, there has been some advances in terms of holding the Burmese military account, but not enough. The Burmese military has lost control internally in large areas of the country, and we are told that morale is low amongst the armed forces. And as well as these documented restrictions that people face, the people are paying a huge economic crisis, and they need international support. Many international investors have pulled out, understandably and correctly, but, of course, it is having a knock-on effect on people's lives and leading to further poverty. The answer has got to be action to remove the military dictatorship and ensure that the democratic government is restored. I welcome the fact that the UK government has supported the International Court of Justice case, and I'm grateful to the Minister when he was in the backbenches for the support he extended in that campaign. And I hope that in office, now that he's back in power, he will do everything he can to secure justice for those who face genocide at the hands of the Myanmar military. And I know that the government has since, as well as supporting the International Court of Justice case led by the Gambia versus Myanmar at the International Court of Justice, I know the government has also committed in principle to supporting a case to the International Criminal Court, and I welcome that. However, I know that it has been stated in the previous minister's response to me in a parliamentary question that there is insufficient support among Security Council members. And while we recognise the challenges, as has already been mentioned, in certain countries like China and Russia vetoing action to seek justice in the International Criminal Court against the Burmese military, Myanmar military, for committing genocide, that our government, as the penholder in the UN Security Council, has a unique responsibility to ensure that they are held to account and show leadership. Otherwise, we will never see justice served for the Rohingya people who have faced genocide. And as I've already mentioned, I think, Sir Edward, it is a deeply distressing situation that the British government has drastically reduced our aid to the Rohingya refugees over the last few years. For the 2021-22 financial year, British aid to the camps was reduced by almost half, to 45% of the level of the previous financial year, and a reduction of 67% on the financial year before that. The need in the camps has not reduced, it has grown. And as I've said, while I welcome some of the steps after years of campaigning with parliamentarians that our government has taken, the fact remains that sanctions against the military sources of income are too slow to be implemented. Even after 2 years, there are organisations and individuals remaining untouched by sanctions. These include major revenue generators such as gas, banking and mining. The military find their way round sanctions and continue to buy arms and equipment to repress people. I would ask the Minister to address this point of the slow implementation of sanctions and whether he thinks that the FCDO has adequate numbers of officials working to deliver the policy. I believe that the UK government should be doing far more to coordinate international efforts to speed things up, and I believe that the UK government must go further with sanctions. To sanction the military cash cow, the Myanmar oil and gas enterprise, ban UK companies from engagement with Burma's gas industry, which earn $2 billion a year, sanction the mining companies, sanction the Myanmar Foreign Trade Bank, speed up implementation of sanctions and close the loopholes until sanctions bite hard. We have seen what governments' coordinated action can do in terms of sanctions in relation to the Ukraine crisis. So where there's political will, we see action in the face of resistance from some players in the international community. I want to see that kind of leadership by our government. And I am very hopeful that with the Minister in his place, who's been a great advocate in this agenda, working with backbench parliamentarians when he was a backbencher, that he is best placed to take this forward further. And I hope he will not disappoint me and other colleagues. Over 100 parliamentarians and many more, actually, over many years have campaigned on this issue with him. There's more action, as I've said, our government needs to take. That includes banning British firms supplying aviation fuel to Burma, sanction the Russian, Chinese, Pakistan and Indian companies supplying Burma with arms, encourage other countries to uphold the ban on supplying arms. I want to point out, there are 3 particular UK companies which have insured vessels delivering aviation fuel. North Standard, formerly known as North P&I, UK P&I Club, and Britannia P&I. I hope the Minister will look at how the financial regulators in our country, the insurance regulators and others, can take steps to ensure that our insurance system is not inadvertently or even consciously fueling fueling aviation strikes, literally, and providing support to a genocidal dictatorship. So can the Minister outline what conversations he's had with his counterparts in other governments to encourage a ban on arms sales? The sanctions must hit the supply of aviation fuel to the military. To save lives, we need to ground the jets and helicopters by cutting their fuel lines. British companies supplying fuel or providing insurance or other logistics must be dissuaded by the threat of sanction. The diplomatic pressure must be stepped up, as well as with economic pressure. Why also is the Burmese military attaché still free to wander the streets of Wimbledon and live in a mansion? It's an absolute disgrace. I know the Minister will agree that that needs to stop. He should be expelled immediately. And can the Minister today tell us why this has not happened? In conclusion, Sir Edward, what we've seen is years of persecution. What we've seen is a military dictatorship, one of the most ruthless in the world, that has jailed the former democratically elected leader. What we've seen is a military that's committed genocide. What we've seen is a military that continues to act with impunity. And what we've seen is a lack of coordinated action and limited leadership by our government. And I very much hope with the new minister, or relatively new minister, with his track record, he will do what is absolutely needed to hold the Burmese military to account for the atrocities they have committed in the past and continue to commit today.
Thank you.